Time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
It was obviously a very enjoyable win for our team and our players. They played awfully hard. They had a lot of emotion tonight. And I couldn't be happier for them. They laid it on the line. They played hard. They played a complete game. I love a lot of those kids over there, and there's a lot of them that mean the absolute world to me.
I mean, if it would have been a heartbreaking loss where you give up a hit late and you think, what are the 10 things we could have done different? It would be even more heartbreaking. I think having gone the way it did, you move on quickly.
Played just good enough tonight to win. We swung the bats very, very well. Thought we played a good game defensively. We had the one play we tried to throw behind the runner that got into the dugout and, cost us a run. But besides that, played pretty clean defensively. Thought we swung the bats very well.
And a pleasant good evening to you and yours, and welcome to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday evening, the 10th day of May 2018, along with Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes, yours truly, Will Pelagic, here with you as the Palmetto State rolls on. Who expected that result last night in the capital city? I don't think that I did, but it was evident very early on that South Carolina ran themselves into a buzzsaw. They had a Friday night starting pitcher starting for College of Charleston because the Cougars had a weekend off. I'll get into more of that and the reasoning behind that in a moment. But Gamecocks one hit by the Cougars, and Chad Holbrook gets his measure of revenge. Objectively, I would say that for this particular game, I'm not saying that it's as embarrassing as the loss to Presbyterian or even some of the earlier losses to in-state teams, but Gamecock fan is waking up with an awful lot of egg on its face this morning.
Well, I think it's sometimes divine providence. As I said before, they ran off a good guy. The pound of flesh was going to be exacted at some point. Might as well get it over with.
You're very big on karma.
Yes, I am. And it works for me. I've seen it happen too many times. But I will say this. From a mental standpoint, the game last night really did not surprise me. Here's why. When you got a team at a fever pitch, it's almost like a Ferrari jacked up to its highest horsepower, and it's running on full, and then you bring it up to Nashville and you take 2 out of 3 of Vanderbilt, and 2 of them were very dramatic. You come home, what did they sweep LSU before that? Mm-hmm. And then they come home and they've got, the third-ranked team, Ole Miss. We got to win this series. This is desperate. We got to win it. And you take 2 out of 3 and you almost swept them. And then Sunday, wait a minute. Wednesday night game, exhale. And then you get ambushed. It's almost like looking at what was the movie I brought up, Gladiator,
Mm-hmm.
with the trap door open. Instead of lions coming out, there were cougars coming all onto the field on them. And I think mentally they weren't ready for that ball game. While College of Charleston mentally and pitching wise was ready.
Yeah, Evan Sisk was fantastic. 7 innings, a 1 hit allowed, 2 walks, 5 Ks. It's not like South Carolina didn't have their chances swinging the bat. They were able to put the bat on the ball, but it was usually right at a fielder. They had 15 hits of their own. Dupree Hart, who out of Northwestern High School in Rock Hill, had himself a fantastic day, a leadoff homer and an RBI single. The real big inning was the 4th, where they plated 4 runs. Out of reach. Gamecocks had a chance to rally in that 4th inning with the bases loaded, 2 out, but Hunter Taylor ends up striking out. Phil Kornblut will be with us during this program, by the way. He is currently in transit right now to his broadcast location, which is an undisclosed variety. He will join us coming up later on in the program here very, very shortly. But just to kind of close the book on this one, and you can hear, we love to hear from you on this one, because I heard from a lot of y'all last night, and some of y'all weren't very, very happy. 800-956-7266 is how you get in touch with us. Email talkback at SportsTalkSC, on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. I thought it was a bad look that the fans left after the 7th inning. I think that's I mean, I run this battle.
I wouldn't say the Charleston fans wouldn't have
They
left.
weren't.
Okay.
They weren't leaving. No, the game was a
Okay.
vast exodus to Gamecock fans after the 7th inning. I know what you're saying. You were getting blown out in your home city, and you just didn't want to see it anymore. But I mean, that's a very unique game, and to me, it just seems like a bad look quitting on your team like that. And I'm somebody who has been displaced from the places that I have had fandom.
Mm-hmm.
So I take as much advantage to see my team as possible, and I don't leave early. If it's a game I don't care about, teams I don't care about, I have no problem leaving. But I didn't like that look, and I also didn't like the fact that, again, it was using the same excuse people are using. Oh, well, it's Chad Holbrook's prize. Of course Chad Holbrook can win beating his own players that he recruited that are bad. I mean, it's just like, listen, you're part of the problem right now. And here's the other part of this that's really bothersome is the fact that, and I don't want to use such vast and big terms, but it felt gutless. It felt very gutless of a performance for the South Carolina Gamecocks. In my mind, how could you come up so small in that spot, knowing everything that happened in the preamble of that game? That was the absolute worst you could have performed after a week and 3 weeks where you had swept LSU, taken 2 out of 3 from the number 3 team in the country in Ole Miss, and you come out against College of Charleston, I don't care if it's a Friday night starter, and you lose and get 1 hit at an in-state school. You've lost 6 games to in-state schools. You are South Carolina. You are supposed to be the flagship baseball program in this state, and you are not right now.
You're talking uniforms. I'm talking psyche. The reason why you just listed is why they came out flat. But I will tell fans this. What happened after you lost to Presbyterian?
Came back, bounced back, and got a big series of victory.
Bingo.
And that's the reason that you'd have some optimism going into a series where Missouri is reeling off of getting swept by Georgia, something that South Carolina fans can identify with as well. Same thing Clemson fans can identify with as well. And they had a little bit too much meat off the bone that they had to chew to beat Western Carolina yesterday. They did so by a score of 10-8, but it was a lot harder than they probably envisioned. Coastal Carolina gets a much-needed RPI-boosting victory, 5-2 over North Carolina. We'll have their head coach, Gary Gilmore. He'll join us at 7:05 as they get ready for their final weekend series at home in Sunbelt play in taking on Arkansas Little Rock, their final home series at Springbrook Stadium in Conway. And, you know, we talk about it all the time with the Chanticleers pro. They need to take advantage of every chance they get. They had one washed out at Chapel Hill, but they get a big home victory against a Tar Heel club that we've seen before is pretty stout.
Yeah, I'm kind of really taken aback by the conference deal, though, because I don't care what conference you're from. If you've recently won a national championship, you should have some cachet from that, in my opinion. It shouldn't be that well, wait a minute, they're a national champion from a Power 5 conference. Oh, so they'll get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to seeding. Well, why Coastal Carolina is not? If anything, that team should have the cachet because they came from a conference where it's tough to recruit earlier because they won when they were in the Big South and still won a national championship. This thing about them having to have this great record and having to win every game, I think it's a little bit sad.
It's a tad sour, and it seems very inconsistent. They should get credit for the national championship of 2 years ago. If there was another name on their across the front of their uniform or another patch on their sleeve that held a Power 5 conference name, they would definitely, I think, get a lot more credit nationally, but it's unfortunate that they don't. And they have to probably play a lot more of those types of games.
Yes.
More than another team would have to in their position. And again, their conference does them no favors. We will talk again to Garrett Gilmore, who said 7:05. We will hear from the man who calls games for the Missouri Tigers, Matt Michaels. He'll give us a preview of what we'll look for South Carolina and Missouri this weekend, and also do that as part of our spring recap of the Tigers. Remember, Missouri comes down here for football this coming season after South Carolina won in the other Columbia last year. And Fran Halloran, the money coach, our usual spot with him on Thursday at 7:30. We'll hear from Mike Morgan, who goes with Morgan on the Move, coming up at 6:30, just about 15 minutes from now. 800-956-7266. It's where we will hear from you. We'll also play Chad Holbrook's comments from last night. It was really, really hard to knock the smile off of his face. And we'll hear from Mark Kingston's comments today after he's had 24 hours to sleep on the fact that his team came out and basically laid the biggest egg in the Palmetto State that they could possibly lay last night.
Against his former teammate at North Carolina.
Yeah, we'll get into that and also how this affects the projections for the NCAA tournament when we come back after this on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday. 800-956-7266 is how you get in touch with us. If you want to talk about a win last night, if you want to brag, if you're a Cougar fan, if you want to lament, if you're a Gamecock fan, and if you're a Clemson fan, you just want to laugh at the whole damn thing, feel free to do so. And also tweet us at SportsTalkSC on Twitter, on Periscope. If you are not in tune with us, you can get the video feed, you can get the audio, the whole thing. You can look at mine and Pro's ugly mugs all you want, and also get get the latest on everything that's going on in the Palmetto State. Sports Talk and South Carolina Radio Network want you to know the 4th Annual Public Service Recognition Week Government Agency Exhibition comes up tomorrow. It's a free public event from 10 a.m. to 2 at the Fort Sumter National Monument at Liberty Square. Representatives from more than 25 government agencies will be on hand to show you what their agency does for you. Robots, dogs, a mini C-17 plane, a passport booth to get your expedited passport, and a mobile DMV issuing your new Real ID driver's license. Learn about what the government does for you on Friday, May 11th. That's tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Fort Sumter National Monument at Liberty Square. So right now, where the RPI sits, South Carolina didn't take as big of a hit as I thought that they would, but they still did take one. It went all the way from 39 to 44 in the RPI rankings. That, again, leaves them very much in the middle of the pack. Just to give you an idea of who's around them, Michigan ahead of them, West Virginia behind them. Clemson, by virtue of the fact that they played a team that only had 6 wins in the season, dropped 2 spots despite a victory, going from 8 down to 10. Coastal Carolina got 3 spots after beating North Carolina up to number 22 in the RPI, and basically taking themselves out of a very, very big portion of that just because they were able to get North Carolina, who was number 3 in the RPI, coming in yesterday. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Well, not much change, but just from a perception standpoint, Pro, where do you think South Carolina sits right now? Do you think how much of that goodwill over the last 3 weeks was undone by last night? I know that the neutral sites don't necessarily penalize you as much as, say, a road loss would or a home loss would. But in my mind, at least from the standpoint, like I said, the egg on their face factor turns itself into at least a little bit of a disadvantage.
See, I come from an old baseball family. It means nothing to me. Because if you're going to judge one dud and all the things they did in the conference, then you might as well just stay at home. I just think it's baseball. Midweek game, you lose it, you have to go back and win game. As I said before, what South Carolina had to do when you started this, when they were 9-9, my theory was in order for them to get into the NCAA tournament, they had to win 16 ball games. 16 out of 30 in the SEC. And in my mind, they're ahead of schedule as far as that's concerned. I don't think there's been an SEC team yet that hasn't finished at least 500 that has not gotten into the big dance. So I think you just flush that and you go on.
We welcome in Phil Kornblut here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Just generally, Korn, I believe that, last night was just an ambush buzzsaw situation for the Gamecocks. I don't know how you read it, but at least from the standpoint of where it sits from yesterday, South Carolina has a very big egg on their face after last night.
No question about it. It was an embarrassing night for South Carolina again against an in-state team. I mean, you were there. You took it all in. I had to go by what you were posting, and then I caught some of the play-by-play call on my way back from Greenwood, and the guys were pretty uninspired from a Gamecock standpoint. It was, it's hard to figure out this Gamecock baseball team. How can they go at this point 6-7 against in-state competition with their lineup? Last night they were facing Charleston's Friday night pitcher. But as good as Sisk was, certainly he's no better than any Friday night pitcher they see around the SEC. And they've been swinging the bat so well. I don't know about you. You were there. You can say more about it than I can. But just from listening and to the comments afterwards and reading the stories of the coverage on both sides, it just sounded like and I know a great pitcher can make you look flat, but it just sounded like the Charleston boys wanted this thing more for their coach than the South Carolina guys wanted for theirs. There's no excuse for a South Carolina team that's been swinging the bat as well as it has been and playing basically at home to be one hit by a College of Charleston pitcher. I don't care if it's the Friday night guy or the midweek guy. That's inexcusable for a South Carolina baseball team. And their issues in the midweek are going to be something that may eventually cost them a better seed in the NCAA tournament, or if they falter here down the stretch, a spot altogether.
Yeah, it's not at the point yet where it is keeping them from being in the conversation amongst teams that belong in the field of 64. But like you said, if they did not go on the kind of 3-week stretch that they have done in SEC play, they necessarily would not be in the kind of position that they are now. They'd be on the outside looking in, and not to demean or downplay what Sisk did. I mean, it's not like he had the kind of performance where, you know, he struck out 17 or whatever through 8 innings or 9 innings. He had 7 innings. He struck out 5. He did walk 2. They had the 1 inning where they loaded the bases, and Hunter Taylor basically helped him out, swinging a ball out of the strike zone. So, I mean, a lot of this was, you know, balls hit right at people, guys getting off balance. I mean, I would struggle to say it was dominant, but the Gamecock hitters were certainly overmatched.
Well, I will say this, a pitcher who does that, I think that's real efficient.
Of course.
To put the ball in play.
He only threw 93 pitches.
That's what I'm saying. You know, all this striking out things, those are the guys who usually have the Tommy John surgery.
Right.
The guys who let the guys put the ball in play, you can have a good performance. But as I said before, call it what you will. The reason why we enjoy sports is it's played by human beings. I'm not trying to explain how a team comes out that flat, but it happens, and you see it all the time. Plus, I'll go back to my magic word again, karma.
Certainly.
Once or twice, okay, Pro, but this is 7 losses to in-state teams. This is a loss now to College of Charleston, followed by, not in any particular order, a loss to Furman, a loss to Presbyterian, a loss to Charleston Southern, a loss to the Citadel, 2 losses to Clemson. They were terrible. They've got one more game to play against an in-state team in the regular season, and that's upstate. And you just can't, if you're going to be a national power and you have hopes of having a deep run in the tournament, you can't be having those kind of performances. That's inexcusable. It is absolutely inexcusable for a team of South Carolina's talent to lose 7 games to inferior, well, Clemson aside, losing 5 games to inferior in-state teams. How many games did
they lose the in-state teams when they did not have their full lineup?
Well, I mean, it's not like they don't have quality replacements that aren't better than the guys they're facing from the other in-state teams.
I'll give you this, because the team that they're playing tomorrow through the weekend has the reverse problem. They're last in the SEC East, Missouri is, yet they have taken care of business in the midweek. Listen to these victories that they have midweek. Number 24 at the time, Miami. Number 20 at the time, Wichita State. They've got victories over Missouri State, who was ranked at the time, and they have a couple of others that were ranked also prior to the time that they were possibly playing them. So it's like they're playing a team that's kind of the inverse of what they are, and their RPI right now is number 32, and South Carolina is at 49. So it's weird. You know, you want to do well in your conference, but you can't handicap yourself like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at the RPI. I see South Carolina at 43, according to Warren Nolan.
Yeah.
And I see College of Charleston moved up 2 spots to a 71. And you said Missouri's in the 30s. Here's Missouri, 30-18, 9-15 in the league, but they're 10 spots ahead of South Carolina, by and large, because against the group of 4 teams, Missouri is 15-0.
Happens. I mean,
and
they haven't always taken care of business against those teams. I know from personal experience. I've seen a couple of those directional Illinois come in and upset them before.
And that's why I like baseball, because a lot of things in baseball is inexplicable.
We will try to get the lowdown and explanation from a man who knows a lot from our friend Mike Morgan. Morgan on the Move comes your way next. Remember, Gary Gilmore, Coastal Carolina coach, joins us at the top of our next hour here on Sports Talk.
Okay, what a ride. The ride from hell. That was the ride from hell.
Was it 75?
Oh, 75 and then 24 through Chattanooga. And then, hitting 40 at 5 o'clock here in Nashville. Traffic. But 75 out of Atlanta was just brutal. One, two, 1, 2. So I can't hear myself when I'm using this, unlike last night. Sound good on this end?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
Hey, it's cool if we do the PJ and golf at 47.
10-4.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It's time for our weekly chat with Mike Morgan, SEC Network and ESPN personality and play-by-play announcer. He's brought to you with Morgan on the Move, my Founders Federal Credit Union, their mortgage team more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process, whether buying or refinancing. Visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage to apply today. And by BP Skinner Clothing, as people nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner, the best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and more available to you. Located in Columbia, in the Vista. You can visit their showroom no matter where you are. Brent will come to you, bpskinnerclothiers.com, to set up an appointment. And Corn, I bet you Mike has a couple of thoughts about just exactly what went down last night at Spirit Communications.
I'm sure he does because he's seen the Gamecocks a good bit this season, and I'm sure that he was keeping an eye on what went on between the Chad Holbrooks and the Mark Kingstons. And I got to believe, Mike, you're as stunned as anybody else who stood on the Gamecock side of things, not only with the fact that they lost, but with the way they were dominated by a good pitcher, a Friday night pitcher, but a team that had been red hot on the offensive side just didn't bring it to the park last night.
Yeah, well, sorry, I choked up there. Thank you. Picking up some of those BP Skinner Clothier's clothes from the cleaners.
Yes.
I wouldn't use the word stunned, honestly. I mean, just from the standpoint of what you mentioned, number one, they used their ace. And number two, nothing surprises me anymore that much about a midweek game. Midweek games, there are shocking upsets, if you want to use that term, every week with top SEC schools. Florida, the number one team in the country by almost everybody's measure, just dropped a couple of them a week ago, including one to Mercer. It happens. It's nothing that to me derails what you're doing as a team or changes your overall outlook. Obviously, you can hurt your RPI a little bit, but we're past the point of talking about Carolina as a bubble team. At least I think we are, unless they have a complete collapse down the stretch. I think it's a team that the last 3 weeks has really played itself into the postseason. So I'm happy for Chad. I think that it probably meant a heck of a lot more to him than anybody else in that ballpark last night. But again, I don't think it does too much to change my opinion or many others' opinion that follow this stuff big picture wise about where this South Carolina sits in terms of postseason play.
Well, okay, that's all good. I understand, the argument of losing a midweek game here and there, but they've lost 5 midweek games,
right.
seven losses to in-state teams if you count the 2 losses to Clemson. They've lost at all of the neutral sites that they've played. Fluor Field, of course, they've won at Fluor Field. Up in yesterday at Spirit Communications Park and up in Charlotte. I mean, I don't know. South Carolina losing 5 games to teams like Charleston Southern, Furman. Come on.
Yeah, I totally understand your point. It's excessive. That's why we're not talking about South Carolina as a potential host. 16 teams will get to host a regional, and even if they continue to win SEC series, there's a good chance that they're probably not going to host, and they'll be a number 2 seed on the road. Had they taken care of business in more of those midweek games, again, everybody loses a few, but because the number is what it is, because some of those losses were to very poor RPI teams, that's why you're talking about a team that in all likelihood is not going to host. So by no means am I saying it's a meaningless stat on the whole. I just don't get too worked up about one midweek game. The pattern has seemed to have been from some of the fan base that every time they lose a midweek game, it is the program's going in the wrong direction. Clearly, we're not the same as we used to be. I go back to the 56-win team that I broadcasted in 2000. They didn't lose many games at all, but they lost to Elon. The teams that won the back-to-back national championships, take a look at how many losses they had in the midweek. It's not something that is, to me, is the biggest barometer of how good a team is playing and how good of a team actually is. It happens every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or in some cases Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That is where you make your bread, and that is where you determine your fate far more than anything that happens on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. And they need to continue winning weekend series in the SEC to improve, their place in the postseason.
One thing that helps them, Mike, is the fact that they have a limping Missouri team coming to town, who you just saw lose to Georgia, a team that's playing without its biggest hitter and also has had some pitching up and downs. The one thing that South Carolina doesn't have in their favor is they might be limited with TJ Hopkins, their sensational leadoff hitter, but this should be an opportunity, like much of this season has been for South Carolina, or at least the last part of the season, an opportunity for them to bounce back.
It should be. I think you're catching Missouri at the right time. As you mentioned, the injuries, including their by far their top overall everyday player. And this is a team that could not have afforded to have their pitching go south. Some teams, if the pitching has a bad few weeks, well, the hitting just steps it up. But the hitting is just not good enough to do that. And so Missouri, when they were winning, and they were kind of I guess you could say kind of a media darling there for a while, and a team that was a good story that could surprise some folks in the NCAA tournament team. The pitching was just, they were winning on pitching and defense. They got an outrageous fielding percentage of like 983. Their starting three pitchers were all good. Their bullpen wasn't bad, but since that went south, they look like a really average to below average team. And unless they can somehow get it back against the Gamecock lineup, last night withstanding, has been hitting the baseball very well, then I would expect another Carolina series victory.
Well, you mentioned Florida, who looks like they're in another universe. And, of course, Arkansas has been rather consistent throughout. And Georgia lately, starting at the middle of the season on to now, has been a strong contender. Is anybody a threat to Florida as we head to Hoover?
In the postseason, you mean?
As far as winning the tournament.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Florida, first of all, the SEC tournament is always a wild card because you never know how motivated the team is to win it all. A lot of coaches, I think, keep an eye on the fact that they'd rather be fresh for the NCAA tournament than Hoover. Hoover is great if you're a bubble team. Hoover is not great if you're a team that's already accomplished a heck of a lot in the regular season and you can't wait to jump into the true postseason. In terms of a national championship, absolutely they could lose. You know, the only number one national seed since we adopted this format in 99 to win it all was Miami in 99. So in other words, every year since then, for the last 17, 18 years, we've thought that we knew who the best team in the country was. And then come Omaha, they either weren't there or they got tripped up once they got there. So by no means is this a done deal. Florida's very good. So is Stanford. So is Oregon State. So are some other SEC teams like Arkansas. So is whoever comes out of the ACC, including possibly Clemson. There's a number of teams that could win a national championship in baseball. That's what differs it so greatly from college football. It's a whole different deal when you're talking about baseball in the postseason.
Visiting with Mike Morgan. Morgan on the move here tonight on Sports Talk. One more thing on USC and College of Charleston. What do you think Ray Tanner was thinking last night?
I think he was halfway happy for Chad and obviously disappointed that his team lost. But again, this is a great media story. But outside of that, it's one of 56, and it's not even that because the more important games are those 30 conference games that I alluded to. So I'm sure there was a little bit of mixed emotions, just the whole idea of the man that you hired and eventually made a change from Mark Kingston with is now coaching against you. But one thing I know about Ray Tanner is a guy that once he cares about you in any facet of life, that care does not stop. So just because it did not work out with Chad Holbrook as the head coach does not mean he still doesn't want Chad Holbrook to do very well. In his perfect world, he'd have South Carolina and College of Charleston in Omaha, and South Carolina would win the national title over College of Charleston. That's the way he looks at it. You know, the trickier one for him is not Chad Holbrook. That's an easy one. Trickier one is when you got to play against Monty Lee and it's Clemson. And obviously you want to beat the pants off of Clemson, but you know, he's the one that discovered Monty Lee was nobody until Ray Tanner discovered him and groomed him. And now Monty Lee's become a great young coach in college baseball.
Mike Morgan on the move. I understand you'll be in Knoxville this weekend, Mike. So enjoy that and enjoy Vandy in Tennessee. Hope you enjoy that, and we'll talk to you next week.
Will do, guys. Appreciate it.
Mike Morgan on the move, joining us here on Sports Talk Recruiting, and we'll hear from the College of Charleston coach, Chad Holbrook, next.
Corey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Did you get Will's text?
Let me look. I'll do PGA, throw you some Mitcha, and then throw to Chad. Okay. Well, I'll tell him I'll throw it back to him. He can lead into Chad.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Welcome back to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I'm especially looking forward to our chat tomorrow with Birdies and Bogeys with our friend George Bryan III, because this is one of my favorite tournaments on the PGA Tour schedule, Players Championship, PPC Sawgrass, Ponte Vedra Beach. A couple of moments ago, Sergio Garcia was your outright leader at 7 under par, but he took a 5 on the island green at 17, put one in the drink, and now has at 5 under par, 1 off the lead, which is shared by none other than Dustin Johnson, who is at 6 under par. Alex Noren, Chesson Hadley, Matt Kuchar, and Webb Simpson also in that group, along with Patrick Cantlay and Steve Stricker. Among the local notables, Lucas Glover is 2 back at 4 under par after shooting 68 today. Scott Brown at -2. Our friend Wesley Bryan is at -1. Tiger Woods still on the course through 16 at -1. William McGirt, 1 over par. He is done for the day. Billy Haas at 2 over. Jordan Spieth at 3 over par. Kevin Kisner and Phil Mickelson each at 5 over. Ben Martin is at 6 over. What's going on in Greenwood, Corn?
Yes, it's the first day of play in the Self-Regional Healthcare Foundation Women's Health Classic on the Symetra Tour. Of course, we were there yesterday. This is the equivalent of the Web.com Tour for the LPGA as compared to the PGA. And one of the hot ladies on this particular tour, she's off to a good start this season, and she's off to a good start in this tournament. Pajari Anarakarn, a 4 under 68 for her, gives her a 1-shot lead on Jessica Welch and Caitlin Sempori. So they are at the top leaderboard. 4 under is your best score, 68, and then 2 are tied at 3 under, 69. Sempori is actually playing the last hole today. Welch is in the clubhouse, so we'll see if she can finish up with a par or better. So that is how things look there in round one. Of course, this thing will be running through the weekend. Former USC star Christy McPherson right now is tied for 10th. She had a 1-under-71 today. So you can tell the course is playing pretty tough with the scores not all that high, or I should say not all that low. And our friend from last night always like to check with the folks that join us on the show. And Brittany Benvenuto, who was with us last night, you might have heard her on the show. She shot she's even par through 17 holes today. So good luck to her as she tries to finish up and maybe get in under par.
Our top story today, of course, last night's College Charleston 9-0 victory over USC, and former USC head coach Chad Holbrook earns a measure of revenge against his old team. Here's how he reacted following the game.
It was obviously a very enjoyable win for our team and our players. They played awfully hard. They had a lot of emotion tonight, and I couldn't be happier for them. They laid it on the line. They played hard. They played a complete game, and we've shown flashes of being able to do that from time to time this year. And tonight was about as good as we can play, and obviously it was a big win for our team. And I love a lot of those kids over there, and there's a lot of them that mean the absolute world to me. So it was a very difficult day for me, but I couldn't. At the same time, I couldn't be happier for my team.
Chad, how much does this help you guys at large postseason chances for going in the CAA?
I don't know. I think when you're in your mid major and you got to focus on winning your league. I think, and we understand that. And but you know what we understand that we have to be almost perfect to make the postseason, and we understand that. And we treated tonight like a postseason game. And South Carolina's in a great league. They're a great team. They got it going. They're playing extremely well. This isn't going to slow them down at all, and they're going to be in the NCAA tournament. Tonight we may or may not be in the NCAA tournament, and if we're not, this was a very satisfying postseason type win for our team.
You largely ignored the personal aspect of this. How happy are you, one, that it's over, and two, that you came out on the winning side?
It's not about Chad Holbrook, and it's not about this College of Charleston baseball program, and that program over there that's had a lot of championships, and I've been a part of them. It's about the players, and those players are great kids, and South Carolina's won a lot of big games, and the College of Charleston is trying to be a factor in college baseball and get over that super regional hump, so to speak. And this was a big regular season win for us. Nothing more, nothing less. Again, they got a lot to play for going forward, and I love those kids over there. And I hope this will springboard us and give us some momentum going forward into our last few games.
How much of an advantage did it give you to be able to throw your Friday night guy?
Oh, it's a huge advantage. I don't think we haven't had a midweek starter be established all year, and it's not really fair, to be honest with you. If you played a weekend and then you go 1 against 1, it's a totally different game. We understand that, but we don't play Friday, and it's not like I saved or wanted to throw our number one tonight. It's I didn't want him to go 2 weeks without throwing, and he only threw 70 pitches last Friday, so he needed to throw, and he was efficient. He pitched his tail off. He competed his tail off, and I'm awfully proud of him.
Is that the impetus for scheduling this series, to have the bye weekend?
No, when we scheduled the game, the game was scheduled, we actually had a weekend series on the schedule. It just through league scheduling and all that, it got waived. Every team in our league has an open bye week, so it just happened after the schedule was done. But again, big win for our team, and it's a great day to be a Coug for sure.
I don't know about you, Corn. It seems like the CAA did a solid for the Cougars there.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this last night, and, it sounds like it was just coincidental, and if so, it's a coincidence that worked out in Chad's favor, because, my goodness, you couldn't ask for a better situation for him. Think about it, man. You're coming back to Columbia. You're facing your old team. You're stepping into a hostile environment. You think apparently did not turn out to be hostile at all, which is good. I credit the fans, I guess. Will, you were there. You can tell me. I credit the fans for apparently, not being hostile towards him, at least as far as what we know. And you get the break somehow, some way, that you've got an off weekend and you can throw your top guys at South Carolina and try and level that playing field a little bit. You couldn't ask for more if you're Chad Holbrook.
You have some recruiting for us.
Indeed. But answer my question, were the fans hostile?
Again, I think at times they were, but I mean, they didn't have the opportunity. Like I said last night, they didn't announce him. They didn't get, there was no moment. There was no isolated moment. I mean, there were times in the game where there was some feistiness, like when LT Tolbert had the situation where he was hit by a pitch and unnecessarily glared toward the pitcher. There was some hostile moments, at least in the confines of the game, but there wasn't anything that was specifically animosity driven toward Chad.
All right. Let's do get to the recruiting because recruiting travels with us. By the way, I don't know if you mentioned, I'm in Nashville. Got some family business to take care of here tomorrow and Saturday. So that's why I was a few minutes late joining you guys, just because the traffic getting through Atlanta, I think, took another 3 years off my life. My goodness. I-75 is a absolute nightmare, no matter what time of day, unless it's at like 3 in the morning. If it's during the daylight hours, forget about it. Anyway, linebacker Jamar Brown of Fort Lauderdale has USC, Miami, and Stanford as his top 3. USC has been on him hard. He says he hears from the coaches every day, whether it's Muschamp or whether it's Travaris Robinson or Coleman Hutzler. They are always in his ear. He has visited. He was there for the spring game. He really liked it. He liked the coaches. He likes the players and the campus. Right now, it's neck and neck with those 3. USC commitment quarterback Ryan Helinski was offered by UCLA. USC offered 2020 quarterback Aiden Atkinson of Boulder, Colorado. USC offered 2021 receiver Dakari Collins of Powder Springs, Georgia. Wide receiver John Mechie of Hagerstown, Maryland was offered by USC. Gamecock target defensive back DJ Daniel was offered by Florida. Clemson offered running back Tyrion Davis of Baton Rouge. Also, 2020 defensive back Henry Gray of Hollywood, Florida. Tigers also offered offensive lineman Ja'Kai Moore of Virginia, offensive lineman Jesse Hansen of Virginia, a Virginia Tech commit, and Dorman offensive lineman John Gillott was offered by Pitt. Guys?
That is recruiting for this Thursday. When we come back, a big win for the Chanticleers last night. Coastal Carolina head coach Gary Gilmore joins us at the top of next hour. That comes your way in mere moments on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay. How's everybody doing? Well, I'm waiting for an apology. It means that almost every Yes or no? Be honest. Oh, Ashley. Be honest. Wait a minute, first of all, where's the air conditioner? I told Dad he was being rude. You swear to God, pull her on the board. It seems dark in here. Okay, I do think it's pretty. Yeah, yes, you were. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. But it's here and ready to go. I should explain it to him. No, explain to him why Ashley should do that. But you just said. No, I can say that. Well, I thought we decided, I thought. No, we did, but I just pointed out that I was.
Check, check.
Corn, I got a voicemail just now.
Okay, I'll send him a text. Try him again. You got his cell number, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Got him?
Nope, still voicemail.
All right, I'll send him a text. Okay. I just text him. You've got the correct number.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday evening, the 10th day of May 2018. Will Pelagic here, producer Brian Leonard behind the bulletproof glass, also Phil Kornbluth in Nashville, and Professor Tom Hayes to the side of me. We spent a lot of time about College of Charleston's victory over South Carolina. Let's kind of look at the other two biggies in the state. Clemson, a 10-8 victory over Western Carolina where they bit off a little bit more than they could chew, and Coastal Carolina, who wins over North Carolina by a score of 5-2. A very interesting situation that developed there last night at Springbrook Stadium. But, Corn, we now have the head coach of Coastal Carolina on with us. Gary Gilmore got himself a big victory yesterday, Phil.
He certainly did. It's good to have the coach with us here on Sports Talk as the Chanticleers are making their run towards the end of the regular season, trying to position themselves for postseason play. And, Gary, congratulations. Terrific win last night over the Tar Heels at your place. Bumped you up 6 more spots in the RPI. What did you love most about your team's play last night?
I just think, a whole lot of different people got involved. We were able to get Venetiano hadn't been able to throw for us about the last 3 weeks. Got him back out there and thought he threw very well for 4 innings. And just mixed and matched from there. And Jay Causey pitched great out of the pen at the end. And we got some veteran guys. Seth Lancaster hit a 2-run homer there in the first inning. That was a huge thing for us. And got a big 2-out RBI after we had failed to do some stuff from another senior spawn seller, so that was huge. And got a home run in the bottom of the 8th from Rivers that gave us a 3-run cushion. And it was just one of those things where they played well, we played well. More of our hits found holes than theirs did. That's basically the tale of the game.
Well, it's just another of a terrific collection of non-conference victories. You have a very strong non-conference schedule this year, so the committee certainly has to give you points for that. You've got some big-time wins from that group. And, at one point, the prognosticators had you in a host role. Do you feel like you've got enough left on the schedule, can get enough quality wins to put yourself back in that discussion?
Probably not. Not with, we've got a real tough weekend this weekend, and, all games are tough. And then we go to Appalachian, and, they're, even though they're playing way better right now, their full year resume is not gonna help us, leap some people, with RPI points. So, right now, right now we just want to get in, and, it's all about matchups. Once you get in, heck, you can be at home and be playing people who are horrible matchups for your team. So, I'm fine with going wherever we have to go and doing whatever we have to do to compete. We'll see what happens. We just hopefully can get back in the playoffs again and see if we can do some damage when it matters. I
know inside your own league, as we're talking with Gary Gilmore, Coastal Carolina head coach here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, when you have a 3-4-5 like Woodall and Bierman and Sponseller, that can really pose a big advantage for your team. How do you feel those three will adjust to the competition level taking a bit of an uptick when postseason hits, as those three have really been the bellwether for you guys?
I mean, I feel like I feel like with our non-conference schedule and with quality of our league, I feel like we've faced, a lot of 90 to 95 mile an hour arms, guys that can change speeds, guys that can do this. I feel like they're, at least as far as experiencing what's out there, I feel like, we've done that. Have we faced Florida staff? No, but there aren't a whole lot of people that have that many good guys. Everybody's got, a handful this day and age. So, it just, I think it all comes down to if you can get in matchups and, who's playing well at the end. A lot of it's momentum and confidence. You can have great talent and, be on a downtick, and somebody else with average talent on the uptick. And it's amazing how close the parity is in college baseball in a lot of ways.
It seems that every time we check the Coastal Carolina score, your team has what I would call early offense. I mean, how much pressure does that take off your pitching staff to have your offense score early in a ball game and get a working margin?
Well, it's something we work real hard at to be able to do, to be able to score first, and things it's things we preach to our kids, because the numbers. You got all these analytical people out there doing all these means of things. Our success rate in wins and losses, wins versus losses when we score first is astronomical. So, it's something we work real hard to do, and offense has done a great job of giving us that opportunity. And we have to a large degree, we have a talented but very, very, very young pitching staff. So we're that has absorbed three guys that had season-ending injuries, and only one of them actually pitched this year. So, and he only pitched for 3 weekends. So, we've had to, what we had planned for this year to be, we haven't been able to do across the board. And, consequently, we've had to factor in a lot of new pitchers as well as young guys. We pitched more freshmen this year than I probably have pitched in the last 10 years all at one time.
Gary Gilmore, Coastal Carolina, with us here on Sports Talk. So if you're going to make any postseason noise this year and make a deep run, is it basically going to be on the backs of the offensive guys? You got a team batting average of 284. You've hit 63 home runs. Woodall's got 16 home runs. You feel like it's just going to have to be big offensive outputs for you to go deep in the tournament?
I don't know if it's going to have to be big, but obviously, offense is, we've lived and died a whole lot this year with offense. But, honestly, if, this weekend will be interesting. Jason Billis, has kind of been, quietly maturing as a guy, and he has as good a stuff as about anybody in the country. So, he was very good, last Saturday, and he'll pitch Friday for us this week. And I'm hoping that we can quietly see him mature into that guy that levels the field, because his stuff levels the field. If he can go in the zone enough and not hurt himself with the walks, he gives us a chance anywhere we go. And Feliciano was 92, 94 last night, the big lefty. So, he threw a ton of strikes for 4 innings and was very good. So, if we can get those two guys going, that we've got some pieces we can mix and match and do some things. I don't think it's a team that doesn't have pitching. It just, we don't have the senior experience and things that we have in our lineup. Our lineup, through and through our lineup for the most part is, a fairly experienced lineup, and we're going to have to ride that some. But good pitching is going to slow down good hitting. It's universal way of slowing the game down and scoring runs. So we're going to have to do the same to the opponent. We're going to have to pitch well enough to give ourselves a chance to win. I have confidence we can do that.
6 regular season games remaining against Arkansas Little Rock this weekend and Appalachian State to close out before the Sun Belt Championship in Lafayette, Louisiana. Gary Gilmore, Coastal Carolina head coach. We hope we're somewhere we can see you at some point this postseason, Coach. Thank you so much for the time, and we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate what y'all do to promote college baseball in our state, and thank you very much. Hopefully we'll be in those things.
Appreciate that. That's Gary Gilmore, who joins us here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. You hit the nail on the head, Corn. They have to unfairly politic for themselves so much in this just because of where their conference is, and it's just something I think is a disservice to them because they're a program that I think is largely advanced based on where they are in relation to the rest of their conference. We'll take a look ahead for what South Carolina has this weekend with Missouri, with Matt Michaels of KTGR Radio in Missouri next.
I might
You talking to me, Corn?
ask Will if he's is this taking up the whole segment?
Yeah, this one is self-contained.
Oh, good. I'm going to go jump into the shower then. I'll be back. Don't get any images there in your mind.
I'm trying to get them all out, man.
Okay, everybody. Good news. I'm going to jump in the shower right now. Got a segment.
You need to iron that.
No, I wasn't. I picked it on. No. I just hate it. I feel like
You have to understand. Where am I on that scale? Where do I go? Where am I? I
think you're number 2 right now.
Number 2. And I'm not saying
Hey, we gotta be there. Gotta leave in 2 minutes.
the guy here the other night.
But my point is, I am still the boss of the school.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
We're the boss.
What I said, no.
So you have to understand sometimes after not good. I think the one this first came from
This has got to.
I have seen already asked.
This has got to.
We've been traded off.
No doubt.
We've been actually I can't be we've been in I've been passed on. We've been passed over.
Passed on.
Asked to get asked. Don't ask. No. No, we're up at the end, girl. Oh, I'm telling you, thought that. He really doesn't. He just gets inwardly awkward. Socially awkward? When he has to do so awkward. Here's the light. Here's the light. Well, it really does take a lot. No, I know that. It really does. So I love it, Jerry. So he gets in reverse. But no, I've never seen that. I think Katie's more extroverted than his dad. Maybe there's a bit that often that he does get around and he gets a little feel. I don't know if you ever read that. Well, that's here's it. I'm ironed on my shirt. Well, I have a spot on my way dress. That's Dad, look, Dora, you dressed. He didn't get a car now. Come door. You know I'm good at that. He did what? It's
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday. Well, it's an unusual turnaround for the South Carolina Gamecocks as they get ready for their weekend series facing the hated Missouri Tigers coming in from the other Columbia. And the man who is part of the radio broadcast team for Missouri, Matt Michaels, joins us from KTGR Radio in Columbia. He joins us also to talk about what happened in the spring for the Tigers. Of course, Missouri coming down here this upcoming season after South Carolina won at Faurot Field last year. Matt, the Tigers come in a little banged up on the offensive side and kind of uncertain where they want to be at just because of the fact that they need wins in the worst way, kind of in the same vein that the Gamecocks do.
All things considered, you know, it's been an SEC season for Missouri baseball that kind of started with promise, right? They go ahead and they've gotten wins over Vanderbilt, a series win that they've never had before since joining the league. They got a big win at Auburn on the road. And as of late, it's kind of been tough because, as you mentioned, they have been banged up. They've been without their best hitter by acclamation, Cameron Meisner, for the better part of a month now as he's been nursing a foot injury. And all things look positive for him to return for postseason play. But right now, it's just kind of touch and go. The team just describes it as day-to-day in terms of when he'll be able to play and when he won't, and he hasn't been able to play for a while. Trey Harris in recent weeks and during that Georgia series last weekend was hampered, maybe the second best or most consistent bat for the Tigers over the course of the season, as he suffered a hamstring injury or a leg injury up at Iowa. So they've been trying to do this now with the home stretch of the season against some good clubs. And Georgia, I think you'd agree, is a very good baseball club right now with an offense that is missing a couple of key pieces. And then add to it a pitching staff that it really has been great all year. You know, a few weeks ago, the Tigers were right there near the top of the SEC in earned run average. The starting rotation had been dynamite. And the last couple of weekends at Kentucky and Cliff Hagan Stadium, the bandbox that it is, and then against a very hot Georgia club, has kind of taken a little bit of a step backwards in terms of what had been winning Missouri baseball games. And so they're looking to get on the right track. They had a whole week off this past week for finals. It was probably something that was good for the team, and they kind of know what's out ahead of them here. If they win a couple of SEC series at the end of the season, they'll find their way to Hoover, and they'll give themselves a good shot to make the NCAA tournament for the first time in a while.
Missouri baseball analyst Matt Michaels joining us here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. The problem for South Carolina has been the midweek action. It's taken their RPI down. Missouri's RPI very, very high because the opposite is true. They've lost games in conference that they probably shouldn't have lost, but they've taken care of their midweek. Ranked victories over Wichita State, Missouri State, Miami, and others have really put Missouri in a good position as far as, you know, looking at the committee and saying that they have something of a resume that they can bring about.
You know, over the balance of the season, Will, the midweek has been so strong because the pitching depth on this team has been very strong. You know, they'll line up on the weekends with a TJ Sikkema, Michael Plasmeyer, and then it's a TBA for Sunday. It could be one of a few guys, but they've had Andy Token, who started the season as a starting pitcher. Then after the LSU series, moved to the bullpen and been pretty much lights out ever since then. He's one of their relievers that they can lean on for, you know, 3 or 4 innings at a time. Niall Ball, who came into the program from junior college, coming into Missouri as a JUCO transfer and really providing some stability on the back end of the bullpen. They've got a guy by the name of Tyler LaPlante, JUCO out of the Kansas City area, who's just been fine as he's gone throughout the SEC. He won't overpower people, but he's a crafty left-hander, and they've relied so much on Michael Plasmeyer this year for a pitching staff that has really needed somebody to step up and take the floor. Plasmeyer's been Mr. Consistent. He's one of the league leaders in strikeouts over the balance of the year and strikeouts looking. He's kind of got that lefty, crafty stuff. I mean, it's a very good chance that Missouri this weekend could go left-hander, left-hander, left-hander for the 3 starting pitchers in their rotation. And they also have Bryce Montez de Oca sitting back there, whether he's going to start or come out of the bullpen, who can throw up to 100 miles per hour if he's really feeling it. And on a hot weekend like this one coming up, he might be. Certainly relying on their pitching and their defense and having the offense come alive when it can. It did a little bit in that Georgia series, but unfortunately just kind of flipped the script and gave up too many runs. And the Tigers are going to look to change that back to the way that they've been playing successful ball earlier in the season.
looking at the Missouri and South Carolina series with Missouri's Matt Michaels joining us here on Sports Talk and South Carolina Radio Network. This South Carolina offense, last night notwithstanding, had been hot coming in, and with the Missouri pitching matchup, it stands to have a very toasty matchup. How do you think Missouri's hitting will match up with South Carolina's pitching staff, which they'll bring not only a very deep bullpen, but also 3 very high-level starters who all could be Friday night guys, given the stuff that they have?
You know, it really does depend. Missouri, when it's working its best, if you go out to Founders Park this weekend, you'll see them taking a lot of borderline pitches for balls instead of called strikes. They want to have very good command of the strike zone, and they want to hit those strikes that they do see very hard. I guess it's no different than anybody else, but it's something that foundationally Steve Beazer wants the club to do. So when they're at their best, they're taking walks. They're finding ways to use small ball and get involved. They're using the hit and run maybe on occasion. The offense has come around in the last couple of weeks, and we're seeing more power potential. Brian Sharp, who you'll see play maybe anywhere. He's played first base. He's played third base on occasion. He's played second base even in the last couple of weeks. He'll find himself somewhere in the lineup, and he's been really good over his last several games, about a 500 average. But coming in just the short run, he's found his power strokes back, so he's contributing to the fold. If Trey Harris is 100%, or even if he isn't completely 100%, he's always a danger leader on the team in RBIs. He always seems to find a way into clutch home runs. They just need to find more consistency throughout the league year. That's been kind of the struggle for them. But the capability is definitely there to put a charge into it. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to sequence it 1 through 9 and get it going for a whole weekend?
We did want to get you a couple of questions about Missouri's spring football. I know that with you following the baseball team, it's been hard for you to see that, but just what has to happen around Drew Lock for him to have the kind of season that not only Missouri can succeed, but also the kind that gets him at least a high draft choice in the NFL draft, as many project him to have?
Well, I don't think it's any secret right now that the word's out that Drew Lock really wanted to improve his pro-style bona fides going into this season. You know, he put up all these gaudy numbers. He had the SEC touchdown completion record. All that's well and good. But Locke understands that NFL teams are looking at him and saying, what can you do in my league? Can you complete those intermediate precision routes? Can you find yourself into a higher completion percentage, 60% or something like that? And that's what Derek Dooley, who's come in, and I think, if anything, definitely been a good quote for Missouri fans. They don't know everything about his offense yet, but it seems to be understood that more of that pro-style approach will apply to Locke. Everybody knows he can throw the home run and can complete the deep ball and have an explosive part of the offense. But I think what they might want to dial into this year is more of that consistency. It will help Locke's pro prospects, and really it will help the Missouri offense be a little bit less boom or bust. They've got great targets. All in all, I think that Locke is able to have success if he adapts well to that style of play, if the offense picks up on new concepts from Derek Dooley, and of course if the defense gives him enough chances to win the ball game, because that was the struggle all throughout last year.
Everyone believes it's going to be a race for second in the SEC East. Matt, South Carolina finished second. Where do you see Missouri in that proverbial race for second?
You know, I think that everybody in Columbia, Missouri is looking at the Tigers and saying, okay, they got to a bowl last year. They would have liked to win out the end of their regular season, but that game against the Texas Longhorns kind of took some of the starch out of the sails. I think that you'll find some optimistic Missouri fans saying, hey, we might be able to get to a 9, even a 10-win season if everything breaks right, understanding that there are games against Florida and Alabama on their schedule this year that aren't going to be so hospitable. I'd say if the Tigers finish somewhere in the upper half of the SEC East, maybe that 4th, 3rd range, a lot of fans would be very pleased with it. And I think that they do have the tools that will be able to get that done. They've got questions on the back end of the secondary on defense, to be sure. They need new defensive linemen to step up, but they have a good crop of them waiting in the wings. You probably haven't heard of them yet. If they're able to get those pieces clicking together, an 8-9 win season, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility for the Tigers of black and gold.
I asked this last question with a little bit of jest, but I'm pretty sure he is currently overseeing a softball tournament that his school is not participating in. But is Jim Sturk on this trip? And if so, is it your job to muzzle him?
I have not seen him on our trip, so I don't know if Jim's coming into town or anything like that. I know that he's made a lot of personal friends in Columbia, South Carolina. I, for one, was the guy who had to ask him the question about that has now made all the infamy or whatever. And so I apologize for my role in that. Don't get angry at me. I just ask the questions, and sometimes people give interesting answers. But as far as I know, you won't have an opportunity to see Jim Sturk on the trip. I think the SEC softball tournament is kind of important to get run right.
I stopped short of wishing you luck, but I will at least say safe travels to and from Los Colombias.
Well, I would expect no less from you, my friend. Thank you, as always, and it should be a fun weekend out of the ballpark.
The Money Coach is next on Sports Talk.
Oh, I don't know. I would ask.
And she's not. What did you keep your minute?
I can't imagine. Can you say that? I'm going to be talking about. Well, I'm not getting
Corn, you back? Corn, you back?
I'll put that on a little bit. I'm back with you.
All right. Got Money Coach online.
Oh, because no, what's his name? Dave.
How's it possible that friend of mine says he's able to hear me when we're in break? He can hear. How's that possible? Are you leaving? Are you leaving me up during the breaks?
No, you're not up.
You got me down in queue?
Yeah.
Because we've been having family talk time. He's saying like, I can hear everything y'all talking about. Yeah.
Oh.
Kids sports and the money parents spend. That's Fran's topic tonight. Kids
You
sports
listen on YouTube?
and the money parents spend. I have to ask him that.
Yeah, because we'll say that if it's on the YouTube, it doesn't matter if I have you up or down. Audio's still gonna come through.
He's probably listening on the Twitter. Is it Twitter the same thing?
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Like to pass along that the South Carolina women's softball team is advanced to the SEC semifinals in the other Columbia. The 3-1 victory over Mississippi State earlier this afternoon. They will play tomorrow at 3 p.m. against 7th-seeded Arkansas, who upset 2nd-seeded Georgia 8-3. Tennessee has beaten LSU 1-0. There's still Alabama and Florida, two perennial powers, matching up against each other in the nightcap tonight in Missouri's softball stadium in Columbia, Mo. But here in Columbia C, it's time to chat corn with the money coach, Fran Halloran.
Absolutely, as we do on Thursday nights at this time here on Sports Talk. We welcome in our good friend, Fran Halloran, better known far and wide as the money coach. Good evening, Fran. How are you?
Oh, gentlemen, thank you for having me. I'm doing very well. I hope you guys are doing equally as well this evening.
Yes. I had an early departure from Columbia this morning, so I had the pleasure of listening to you this morning with Kev Cohen, and then in your own hour on the points. Always good stuff to hear what you have to say. Tonight, we're focusing on kids sports and the money that parents spend in the hope that their little Johnny or their little Julie or their little somebody will one day become at least a college scholarship athlete or perhaps even a pro.
That's right. And forgive me, first of all, if I sound a little bit bummed out tonight because my 76ers lost to the Celtics.
Wah, wah, wah.
I'm a little bummed, but I'm getting through because who would have thought in this day and age that being terrible purposefully for 2 or 3 years would be the recipe for success for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Trust the process.
That's right. That's right, bro. You're exactly right. But, since we started this segment a couple of months ago, I've really been focusing a lot on money in sports at the pro and collegiate level. But as I said, as Corey, you put a few minutes ago, or said a moment ago, we really have a huge issue in America with youth sports and the money in particular that parents are spending on it. I was reading an article in USA Today a few months ago, actually, and I was reminded of it earlier today on my morning show on The Point. And what really triggered this for me is it's kind of a personal issue. I have 5 children, and they're all year-round swimmers. And I don't need to tell you that swimming is not an inexpensive sport, and my kids are all pretty good at swimming. And so we travel quite a bit, and we spend a considerable amount of our discretionary funds each and every month on swim meets and practices and camps in the summertime. Thank goodness my wife is one of our coaches, our team dryland coaches, and she gets a little bit of a discount on a few things for that. But not everybody's as fortunate as we are to be able to get a little discount. Let me give you some statistics on this. This will blow your mind tonight. 20% of parents aged 30 to 60 with at least $25,000 in savings or retirement funds are spending $1,000 per month on youth sports. $1,000 a month on youth sports. Now, let me put this in perspective. That's in line with the median mortgage payment in America of $1,030 a month that Americans make monthly. So people are spending almost the median mortgage payment on youth sports. Let me give you some startling statistics here. 63% of American families spend $100 to $499 a month per child. 18%, spend $500 to $999 a month. 11% spend $1,000 to $2,000 a month. 8% spend over $2,000 a month. 33% of parents are not contributing to retirement accounts for themselves because they are trying to get their kids in a position so that they can get that scholarship to a Division I, Division II school. And guys, the statistics for that are alarmingly small. 1% of children will get an opportunity to play Division I basketball, 2.6% to play Division I football, 2% will get to play Division I golf. And get this, the highest percentage the highest best bet you got, I should say, highest percentage percentage of a kid getting a scholarship, believe it or not, college hockey, 4.6%. 4.6% of kids who are playing club level hockey will have an opportunity to play in college.
So you're saying I should have taken up skating at an earlier level. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. You should have been a hockey player because you'd had a 4.6% chance of getting a scholarship. And of course, as Corn said, they're really looking at pro sports as well. And the statistics are even more miserable. 1.1% will get an opportunity to play basketball, 1.5% play football. Hey, believe it or not, 5.6% will get the opportunity to play hockey. That's all from the NCAA. But the issue here is this. Parents are so enamored with the idea of their kids getting scholarships. They're spending this enormous amount of money. If they just took that $1,000 a month that they're spending on a sport for their kids, and they invested that in good growth stock mutual funds for 18 years, from the time they're born until the time they go to college, $272,000 to put your kid through school. So put this in perspective. We're spending $1,000 a month hoping for a $25,000 a year scholarship right now, when we could be putting this money away for our children. And at the end of the 18th year, we're talking about having better than $250,000 to put them through school. We have lost all semblance of common sense in our country when it comes to this. It's crazy, y'all. It's absolutely crazy.
Is there one particular sport that jumps out at you that's eating up the greatest part of the pocketbook, and not just individual sports? We're talking about the team travel sports. You know, the cost of having your son on a travel baseball team, or your daughter on a travel softball team, or 7-on-7 football. Is there one that eats up more of the pocketbook?
No, believe it or not, the one that probably eats up more than anything else is golf. Golf is huge. Golf, because the travel involved in playing golf is so costly. One of the families mentioned in this article, they're traveling overseas 2 and 3 and 4 times a year so that little Johnny can play in overseas golf tournaments to gain more exposure for himself for college. And he's only 13 years old. They're spending between $4,000 and $5,000 a month on travel and expenses for golf for their son. Golf is probably the one. But hey, listen, we all know how expensive AAU basketball can be, and travel baseball, swimming. It's all equally ridiculously expensive these days. And again, we're chasing after something that is completely out of the norm. It is so rare for kids to get scholarships these days. So rare. But yet these parents are throwing all of their eggs in this basket, hoping and praying that their kid's going to get a free ride to college, when if they just would save a little money, right? If they just saved a little bit of money, they'd have the money to put their kids through school, and they could also fund their retirement. It's a real problem in our country, and we've got to get a hold of it, guys. Got to get a hold of it.
How can folks get a hold of you, Coach?
888-779-2557, 888-779-2557, Higgins and Halloran. We're here to serve you, and we're here to help you figure out how you can spend some money on Johnny's sport, but also prepare for your retirement and prepare Johnny to go to college.
We can't help you hit a curveball, unfortunately, though.
And of course,
That's right. That's
of course,
exactly
some of those
right.
parents are living vicariously through their kids, hoping one day they would have been superstars, but at least my kid can be one.
Fran, thank you so much for the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
That's Fran Halloran, the money coach, joining us every Thursday at 7:34. Sports Talk continues in a moment. We'll hear from both Clemson and South Carolina head coaches as they look ahead to their weekend games, and also wrap up some loose ends on this Thursday evening.
Corn, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Which direction you want to go right now?
I got a quick baseball recruiting nugget to pass along, and then he can go into the coaches.
Okay, so the baseball nugget, and then Kingston and Monty.
Correct, Amundo. Whichever one he wants to do first.
Cool.
No.
Hey, landed yet?
Yes. It just said landed. Go to put your belt and everything on. Here. And what, you're gonna wear your black shoes, right? Yeah.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We're brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Visit foundersfcu.com to see how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. Corn, you had a nugget you wanted to pass along, sir.
Yes, sir. A little baseball recruiting item for you that I missed when we were doing the main recruiting report. USC yesterday, what's today, the 10th? Yeah, yesterday, USC got a commitment from 2020 right-hander Josh Griggs. He's out of Marlboro Academy in Bennettsville. So he joins the USC class 2020 right-handed pitcher Josh Griggs.
As for the Gamecocks of the present, they are presently focused on Missouri, who comes in off of a series sweep from the hands of Georgia. South Carolina fans know that fate all too well. Of course, they will have to flush things very quickly, and head coach Mark Kingston talked about just how they will have to flush things after their 9-0 loss at the hands of College of Charleston last evening.
Absolutely. And we started that message last night. You know, every time we play poorly in the midweek, we bounce back. And so just need to repeat that. It's the bottom line. For whatever reason, we haven't played well in the midweek games, but for a while now, we've played very well on weekends, and we just need to continue that. So having that experience to draw on definitely helps you to do it again.
It's just the tenor of the way last night went, just kind of it being one of those nights. Does it make it easier to flush what happened last night?
I think so. I mean, if it would have been a heartbreaking loss where you give up a hit late and you think, what are the 10 things we could have done different? It would be even more heartbreaking. I think having gone the way it did, you move on quickly.
So what do you see from Missouri, especially with the fact that you don't necessarily know what you'll see Sunday?
Yeah, they've got some really good arms. Their pitching is really good, has been really good the majority of the year. They'll go 2 lefties on Friday and Saturday, 2 very quality lefties. And then I think they're going to use their TBD. I think they're going to determine the guy that's been pitching on Sundays is a big-time power righty. My guess is they're going to try to use him Friday or Saturday if they need to help win a game. If not, he would start on Sunday. But they are a very pitching-dominant team. Offense has some really good hitters as well. But I think they generally win because they have good pitching.
I said TJ's day-to-day, but kind of what's his prognosis, and is he able to participate in practice? Is he limited in anything that he can do? Yeah,
he's limited very much so right now, and we'll see at 2 o'clock today what he's able to do, whether it's any defense, any offense, any running. It's just a day-to-day basis, and have to work very closely with our trainers to make sure we're not doing anything that will set him back.
Mark, you kind of addressed this last night, but now that maybe you've had a night to sleep on it, what is it about going up against maybe a former coach that recruited some of these guys that maybe can make it a little bit distracting or challenging?
I don't know. At the end of the day, it was a baseball game. It was their players versus our players, and their players played better last night. That's the way I look at it. Nothing more, nothing less.
How important can this weekend be maybe to get to that second spot in the East?
Well, I mean, every game we've played in the SEC has been a battle, and so once again, you don't really look too much at the series. You look at the next game because you have to try to accumulate X number of wins to get yourself in the conversation for the NCAA postseason. So you just try to win the next game you can, and are these important? Yeah, but so is the first weekend, the second weekend, because they all count the same. You get 30 chances to win an SEC game. So you try to take advantage of each of those 30 chances. And so we have 6 left. We have this 3 this weekend. We have 3 next weekend at Texas A&M. So to me, it's just you get 30 shots, and so you try to maximize each one of those shots.
Obviously, I know you want to win all the last 7 games, but do you have a number in mind where you say if we win this many, we're in good shape?
You know, it's hard to say. Every year is different. Some years it takes, I think, probably 16 or 17 to get in. Some years there can be a little bit less than that. So I don't want to fall into that trap of giving our guys a number and then all of a sudden you reach it and on any given year because of bubble teams, and sometimes bubbles get burst. So you just try to win as many as you can. I don't think at this point we're in a position to set a number. You just try to win as many as you possibly can.
South Carolina head coach Mark Kingston, Corn, this Missouri team takes a very Clemsonian, I should say, approach. They are very patient when they hit. They have very good pitching. I was on a Columbia, Missouri radio station today and was asked about what do you expect. I would have said 24 hours ago I'd expect a sweep of Missouri. But right now, after seeing what I saw last night, it could be anything.
Yeah, I mean, you were there, so you'd have to explain to me why the Gamecock bats were lagging last night. They have been so hot at the plate, and they had been talking about how much they had improved because they've gotten the bat speed right facing the pitching machine that gave them better pitches and faster pitches to hit. And it seemed like their confidence level was high, and they felt like they were playing with some swagger and things of that nature. I mean, was Sisk just throwing some junk up there that they couldn't time, or was he just blowing the ball past him?
I mean, they were hitting the ball right at guys. I mean, it wasn't like they weren't making good contact. There were some balls that went to the wall. There were other things that took place in the game where, again, it just seemed like they had guys perfectly positioned. I mean, I hate to say it, but College of Charleston looked like the more prepared team, and they looked like they took the game more seriously than South Carolina did.
There you go. I go back to what I said before. We were talking off the air. I think South Carolina exhaled. What I mean by that is they played LSU, swept them, went to Vandy, got 2 out of 3, and could have swept Ole Miss and won 2 out of 3. And something between them and College of Charleston, they exhaled. and they walked into the arena and not with a serious approach.
Clemson had a little bit more than they probably could chew, at least going into that game against Western Carolina, a series where they should have possibly, or at least a game the way they should have possibly blown them out, but they needed to win by a pair. Here's a little bit of what Monty Lee had to say yesterday.
Played just good enough tonight to win. We swung the bats very, very well. Thought we played a good game defensively. We had the one play we tried to throw behind the runner that got into the dugout and, cost us a run. But besides that, played pretty clean defensively. Thought we swung the bats very well. Weatherly struggled a little bit. Travis Morris, proud of him, even though he got hit and gave up the big inning. He stuck with it, kept competing, filling up the strike zone. Obviously going into this game, we didn't have three of our best relievers available just because of the amount of pitches that they threw over the weekend. And it was great to get guys like Strider back in there. Strider threw the ball very well, had a clean inning, and we wanted to get Owen Griffith in there. We feel like Owen Griffith is a big part of this pitching staff, and just because of the success of guys like Spires and Miller and Gilliam, he hadn't been able to get in there a whole lot. So it was great to put him in a high-pressure situation, and I thought he threw the ball very, very well. So every starter in the lineup tonight had a hit, scored a run, or drove in a run, except for Cromwell, and he hit two of the harder balls on the night. Drew a walk and hit two balls really hard that got caught. So, he had some tough luck, but besides that, felt like we swung the bats well, had two big innings, and it was just enough to hold them off and win the game.
That's Monty Lee. Seth Beer, by the way, Corn, is getting hot. 3 consecutive games with a home run. He hit another one last night. Logan Davidson also back-to-back games with home runs. That is going to spell trouble for anybody who sees the Tigers here late in this month.
Well, I mean, that's what they've been hanging their hat on for the most part. Their pitching has been outstanding all season, and they've developed a very good back end of the bullpen. So I think when they get to postseason play, I think that Monty Lee, he can play it somewhat cautiously in that if they can take a lead into the 6th or 7th inning, they can go to their bullpen with a lot of confidence. But with the way these guys are hitting the baseball now, you're seeing what he talked about in the preseason. He thought this was going to be the best power team that he had at Clemson, especially 3, 4, and 5. Those guys are starting to step up and really ring the baseball and hit with the kind of power that you would expect. So with Beer and Williams and Cromwell, occasionally some power from Green, and some other guys from time to time delivering the deep ball. Clemson, they've got to feel good about what they can do with a home regional and that chance to take that step forward that has eluded Monty Lee and get to that super regional. And if they finish up strongly enough to have the national top 8 seed, they'll be home for that super regional.
They'll play Austin Peay this weekend. South Carolina hosting Missouri. Coastal Carolina will face Arkansas Little Rock. Man, if you missed our conversation with Gary Gilmore, it is on SportsTalkSC.com. Our best to your folks in Nashville, Corn. Pro and I will hold it down tomorrow here from the capital city on a Friday edition of Sports Talk. Talk to you tomorrow.
All right, Corn.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready. We'll knock out this recruiting real quick.
All right.
Since I don't have to leave just yet.